Good morning or afternoon. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. I know it's hard to sit and look at a video. For the next 2 weeks, we are going to learn what principles do we think about when creating an early learning environment. And this week, we will start with an intro to Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. And then we will slowly, as the week goes by, move on to thinking about applying some of those concepts to what type of environment we want to offer young children. And then on Friday, you're going to create a preschool layout. And this is an example of a preschool layout. And as you can see here, there's a sense of certain areas for children to play in. And you can kind of really see this flow. We will be talking about flow and safety. And I think it should be fun. I think you'll enjoy it. Our essential question for today, since we're only talking about Erikson today, is how do Erikson's stages relate to how we feel about ourselves and the world around us? And as you learn about these first 3 of the 8 stages, you might connect some of these outcomes to your own life. These are the 8 stages right here, but we're only going to focus on these first 3. First one meaning basic trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame and doubt, and initiative versus guilt. And in each one of these stages, there are significant relationships. So if we go back to the first one here, this idea that the stages relate to how we feel about ourselves and the world around us, we can really understand that these first significant relationships would be with parents and family. And of course, as we grow older, our significant relationships start expanding to the world around us. And the stage all of you are in is identity versus role confusion, where your peers and your role models are really kind of where a lot of your focus is in terms of how you get your identity and trying on different things that you like and don't like. And this is where a lot of people will start like doing interesting things to their hair or trying different sports or hanging out with perhaps different types of people. So this is a really natural time for you to figure out who you are in the world. But for today, we're only going to focus on these first 3. This second part here is really important, and that is each stage is characterized by a major task. The task meaning, for example, for this first one, we want children to feel a sense of trust in the world. However, there is what Erikson calls a psychosocial crisis. So versus is the crisis, right? Mistrust. So meaning it can go well or it can go not so well. And if a child doesn't pass through this stage in a positive manner, meaning that they feel a sense of trust, then Erikson believed that the child might have trust issues for the rest of their life. And maybe have some self-defeating attitudes about themselves or other people. Not just this stage, but any stage that it could create a sense of unhealthy development if they don't pass through the stage in a positive way. So let's dive into the first 3. All right, trust versus mistrust. And the quintessential question is, can I trust the world? And in order for infants, so this stage goes from 0 to 2 years, and we want them to have a sense of trust, that their needs will be met. And so if you look at this stage in terms of the concept of spoiling a baby, you cannot spoil a baby, according to Erikson. We are there as parents and caregivers to take care of their needs. And if they're crying, and it's healthy to attend to them. So this means offering them comfort and food, a sense of regularity and dependable affection. And this is a kind of an interesting diagram right here. And if a child, according to Erikson, is neglected or abused, they will feel a sense of mistrust and perhaps the rest of their life. And you can kind of see maybe where he's coming from here. This is a brain of a normally developing child, and this is a brain of a child who experienced severe neglect. And you can see these big gaps in the middle of his brain here, and there's actually some shrinkage. Now, I don't necessarily think this size ratio here is spot on, but there is some shrinkage, and the areas of the brain that they show right here have to do with being able to regulate emotions. And so what happens when a child's basic needs are not met on a consistent basis, they end up in terms of their brain development having issues of meeting challenges in their life in terms of when their needs are not met, with fight, flight, or freeze. So you might see this in children that are really easily upset, and they just can't get a hold of how they're feeling. And in cases of extreme neglect, this is actually developmentally what is happening for them. They do not have the neural pathways to be able to self-soothe and calm. So this stage is really important. And again, it's not about spoiling babies. It's about loving them and paying attention to them and giving them that sense of dependable affection and comfort in food and so forth. So this next stage is interesting in the sense that I'm wondering if some of you have memories of this stage here, because really what it's about is autonomy versus shame and doubt. And this is the 2 to 4 years. So you'll start to see this in preschool as well, in terms of them teachers supporting these skills. But autonomy means I can do it on my own. And of course, we know what shame and doubt means: feeling bad about yourself, feeling incapable, feeling like you can't do something. So during this stage, we want children to have a sense of, yes, I can do this. I'm able to be independent and do something on my own that's important. And developmentally, what we're looking for during this age are 3 things. One is feeding themselves, dressing themselves, and learning how to toilet train between ages 2 to 4. So we will support these skills. We don't expect children to do them perfectly during this time, right? We want to support their ability to do these things. So you might remember dressing yourself, or maybe you remember your parent really just taking over and always wanting to dress you because they wanted you to look a certain way. You may have memories of toilet training going well or not. You may have memories of your parents just encouraging you to enjoy mealtime, of course with some rules, not just throwing food on the floor. Or you may have some memories of it being a negative experience where a parent was very controlling about how mealtime went. So again, we want obviously children to have some sense of doing all of these things on a continuum, right? So it's not about perfection, it's about just supporting these skills here, and we want them to feel a sense of autonomy versus shame and doubt. Now, if we again demand too much too soon for children and don't allow them that learning process, they can feel a sense of like self-defeat, and that they don't feel capable. So what happens, according to Eric, is a child might eventually, they will eventually most likely learn how to do all these things unless there's a developmental delay. But if something really negative happens during this time in terms of how the caregiver or parent is relating to the child, then what that means, according to Erikson, is that they will feel a sense of inability to have that sense of self-mastery, that might follow them in some way for the rest of their life. Again, I think it's shades of gray. I don't think it's ever about if things don't go perfectly, you're going to feel horrible about yourself. I think it's, do you have more positive or more negative experiences in this particular stage, or in any stage? Okay, we're on to our last stage. Initiative versus guilt, and this is that definite preschool age we're talking about. Initiative means to initiate something is to try something. And during this stage, which we will base our ideas of setting up a preschool is, we want to offer children lots of things to try. We want to offer them what we call a yes environment. Lots of exploring, lots of trying out new things, and that it's okay to do so. But if caregivers are very controlling about the environment and they're not supportive of at least providing some opportunity for children to explore and maybe make some messes and that type of thing, they will feel a sense of guilt. They'll feel bad, according to Erikson, that they want to try. They they're going to make messes. They're going to possibly break some things or do some things to the environment that we would prefer them not to. Again, it doesn't mean, according to Erikson, that we should have no boundaries, but that we need to provide children these opportunities. One important aspect of stage 3, initiative versus guilt, is exploring the world around them and appropriate risk taking. So that might mean letting a child climb to an appropriately tall spot on a climbing structure. Or it might mean a child trying to climb part of a tree, or to basically to do something physical where there's a little bit of danger, but not so much so that they won't that they're really going to hurt themselves. So this is really important. And I don't know if you remember as a child wanting to take some risks, and we want them to. We want them to feel a sense of self-mastery, to take that initiative, and even if they crash, that we'll be there to pick them up. So again, it's appropriate risk-taking. Okay, so on to the prep. It shouldn't take you very long to do the prep. This first one here, what is a psychosocial crisis? And we talked about each one of Erikson's stages, even though we only talked about the first 3, having a positive outcome and a possible negative outcome. So what is that crisis about? How does he define that crisis? And then there are going to be 3 scenarios here, and I'm going to want you to basically read the scenario and then name the stage this scenario is referring to, and it's one of these 3 here. You'll put the stage here, whether it's autonomy versus shame and doubt, or initiative versus guilt, and so forth. And then is this scenario a sign of successfully passing through the stage? So do you think this scenario will have a positive or negative effect on the child? So all you have to say is yes or no. Is this scenario a sign of success? Yes or no. So you'll read through each one of these. Again, put the stage, and yes or no, is this a sign of success? And then the last one here is the question I really want you to put some thought into, and that is, why do you think it's important for parents, caregivers, and preschool teachers to have an understanding of Erikson stages? You might even include some examples from your own life that were positive or negative. I might say, I think it's important because I remember as a child my parents letting me dress myself, and I have many, many pictures of myself in wacky outfits, but I know it gave me a sense of confidence and independence, and I know that it had a positive effect on me. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you at Zoom.